right, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at the idea of texture, right? And texture is really about how something feels on our skin, on our fingertips, for example. Right? Texture we tend to think of as something that is three-dimensional, right? Because of the fact that it is so tactile that there's a sense that we can touch it. Artists, though, right, like to be able to recreate the illusion of texture. They want to trick our eyes into being able to imagine how something feels. Right? And in order to do that, we need to be building on our understanding of line and value in order to make sure that those illusionistic, or what we call implied textures, are fairly believable. Okay? So today I'm going to go through and talk to you about some of the maybe different things that you could be taking a look at and thinking about how we use lines in order to be able to create the sense of texture that we're going to want in our work. Right. Granted, we are also for this particular project, we are working with a lot of stylization for the most part. It's not a super highly realistic approach to drawing, right? But at the same time, we can apply textures in fairly simple ways in order to help create a little bit more sophistication to our drawings. Right, so the first thing I'm going to take a look at is the idea of creating like grass. You know, you're out in the field playing soccer or baseball or lacrosse, right? And you want to kind of add just a little bit of an embellishment to the surface so that we understand that that your character might be playing on a field, right? So one way that you could go about that is by using small directional lines, right? And you could fill in an area or a panel within your comic strip, for example, with these little lines, right? One strategy, right? Another thing that you could do is you could use some curved lines and cluster some groupings of tufts of grass in order to help create that illusion, right? So clustering them in small groups of 1, 3, 5 typically works really well. Another option would be to kind of create kind of more of a squiggle line here and there, right? And looking at scale. So you could have small ones, right? You could have some tall blades of grass, right? In order to, you know, create that sense of where the texture is going. And if you have a line in your field, right? Maybe it's just some, right? You're just joining those together. Right, so there's the grass, right? I'm putting in some more little marks here and there, right? But I'm going to avoid putting the marks in that area to create that blank space for where a line on the field might be located, right? Just one strategy. Right? So just some simple marks. Some of them can be really quick, some very gestural, some of them are a lot more controlled. Okay? Number 2 is taking a look at the idea of wood. Okay, so with the wood grain, right, you might have a table, for example, right, and you want to start creating the illusion that there is a wood grain. Right, so I'm going to just kind of create my panels here, right, and I'm going to be thinking about the end of the wood, right, and when you look at the end of a piece of wood, we have what's called the end grain. And so different types of wood have different patterns that we see here, right? So by putting a little bit of texture on this side, right, and thinking about how these lines go, right, we have these areas that are created by knots, which are essentially the places where different branches have grown in the wood. Right, we're able to start creating a little bit more variety, and I can use a thicker, more intense line as the edge or the border of that piece of wood in order to create a little bit of emphasis, right? So by simply adding some of these textures, right, you're embellishing it a little bit in order to add just that little bit of visual variety to give your work a little bit more substantial presence. Right, one big request has been talking about this idea of hair. Right, so I'm going to just very, very quickly sketch out a hair pattern here. I'm just going to label it. So we have our hair, and I'm going to have person, and I'm not really thinking about what this person's going to be looking like overall, but I'm gonna kind of create similar to the character that I was working with in my own. Right, and I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to be again using a similar pattern and approach to the what I did with the grass. Some loose work here, and right, thinking about the direction. Right, so as we go in, we start creating greater intensity. Right, I can create some shadows for this front part of the hair. Right, using some shorter lines for short hair down the side and bringing it across. Right, you can also be a lot more deliberate. Right, this is fairly expressionistic. Right, you can start creating very long, curvy, fluid lines as well. Right, and again, using that idea that the closer the lines are to each other, right, you're going to be able to create a little bit of value. So at this point, if I wanted to create some darker, like a shadowed area, right, I'm going to take my pen, I'm going to be a lot more deliberate. I'm going to layer these lines much closer together in order to create that shadow. Maybe there's a bit of a dark spot in here and through here, and providing some of that variety to create a little bit of additional texture overall. Okay. And lastly, we're going to be taking the look at the idea of foliage. Right, foliage are leaves. Foliage. My spelling's a little bit off today. So if I'm creating a tree, for example, right, there's different ways about going about this. Right, we don't want to have, right, sort of the elementary icon of a tree. Right, what can you do in order to create that kind of illusion of a tree? And being a little bit looser with your gestures, right, and thinking about the fantastic thing about trees is that they offer so much depth because of the amount of light and interplay on all of the variety of different surfaces that they have. Right, there's thousands of leaves on a tree. Right, finding areas that you can kind of go in and concentrate on. Right, and then when you're creating your trunk of the tree, right, thinking about the direction, right, bringing those lines down, layering them again in order to create a little bit more sense of depth. Right, you don't have to be drawing every single detail perfectly or trying to replicate it exactly, right, but you should be thinking about how you can use different types of lines in order to help create a little bit more visual interest in your work. Right, and by combining line and value, texture, right, you're going to be starting to create much more dynamic and energetic images. All right, so those are just some suggestions. If you're having difficulties with any textures and you want some advice, right, you can always reach out to me. Also take a look on YouTube. There's thousands of really good tutorials, but if you're looking for something specific, right, practice, right, and make sure that you ask questions. Right, we're always here to help. Have a great day. Good luck. Can't wait to see what you guys are able to put together.